Hello everyone. Today is a much better day weather-wise for exploring the intertidal zone, and we've got an incredible low tide coming up in about half an hour or so. So of course our community monitoring team is out doing some beach monitoring today. So let's walk down and check into what they're doing. I want to point out all this driftwood that's here, because this is surely indicators of the power of the tide. So our tide can come all the way up here, reaching over these seawalls, and then extend all the way out, and we've got a negative 4-foot tide today. So let's carefully hop down. There are barnacles I need to be careful of. And I always recommend people wear boots when they are visiting the beach, because there are just so many things that can cut you and scrape you. And it's just a good idea, especially if you want to go walking in the water. So our beach monitoring crew is out. And while I carefully make my way across all of this rocky cobble habitat here, where there are many soft, squishy animals like these aggregating anemones, why don't you go ahead and post in the comments where you are watching from. And that's great information for us to have. You can also post maybe how many people are watching with you, or what you're hoping that we might see on the beach today. So we've ran out this transect here and marked with various stakes kind of where the tide is at different tidal heights, and then our crew here is getting ready to measure and gather some biodiversity data as far as what's in each quadrant. Oh yeah, you want to explain? Tell me what you're doing.
Welcome to the +5 tidal height. Just kidding, we're at the +1. +5 is way up there.
+5 is way up there where those barnacles start.
So welcome to the middle intertidal zone here, where we're looking at getting some numbers to estimate populations of living things.
Love it.
At Demolay. So we were just talking about how every quadrant, which is a quarter meter by quarter meter, we have 5 of them along our tidal height here. We're gonna do the percent cover of seaweeds and then count the number of living things. So we can see some sea lettuce going on, really
everywhere. 100% cover of sea lettuce.
Well, days. We also have that ova intestinalis, or
Oh yeah, the tubular kind.
it's so tubular. Sometimes you get the shredded lettuce.
Yes, which this is very shredded lettuce-esque
Yeah.
here. It's hard to tell when the tide goes out.
Right.
Yeah.
We're seeing barnacles, which they're pretty.
Ooh, and our barnacles
feeding.
here are feeding currently. You can see them kicking out their little feet through the trapdoor in their shell. And that'll stop here shortly as they realize they're not underwater any longer. But there's barnacles on just about every single rock. So you slow down and take a closer look, and you'll realize there's so much more life here
And there's also
than you
these
thought.
little tube worms sticking out. So we'll count the number of those. And then once we'll want to do our algae percentage first before we start rolling rocks and kind of just looking at the number of things in this area. And then we can compare the +1 tidal height to the 0 and the -1 and our +5. And at this beach we've started a +10 because
It's so high up
something
there.
interesting What's going to happen is there's a project to possibly remove this seawall, and if we take that seawall out, you can imagine this beach will change. And so part of the value of doing science like this is to document how this beach is now, and then we can look at it over time and see how it gets different, or maybe stays the same.
Or maybe it stays the
Things
same.
are going to change a little bit here, so
Nice.
it should be really interesting. But
Yeah, and our tide is going out, and I've already spent some time walking along the shore. So I'm going to go show you some cool creatures, and we'll check back in with Stina and her crew of amazing volunteers. Thank you all for being here today. And here's a familiar face.
Hello!
Woohoo! Carly's in the house. All right. So I'm going to go walking out into the lower tidal heights to try to find some cool creatures, and then we'll check in with them. So right here is the marking for our 0-foot tidal height. So this is the average of all the low tides, kind of right here near this little cluster of boulders here. And then we've marked out the -1, which on a steeper beach would be much closer. But because this sand spit just goes and goes and goes and goes, it's quite a ways away here. And this is a beach that gets a ton of wave action, and the sand that's here shows that in kind of the pattern of the sand. It's really quite pretty out here. But let's head right to the shore and just look at what a different day it is today than when we were out yesterday at Narrows Beach Park. We got hit with so much rain, some sunshine, and just a ton of wind. It was wild. And already I can tell that we're nearing the point of the low tide because we've got sea stars. This happens to be the leather sea star, and you can see it slowly kind of moving. They are not known for their speed because they're coordinating their movement of thousands of little tiny suction cup tube feet. And as the tide goes out, this animal is trying to outrun it as well. But they are perfectly well adapted to living life in this zone, and so a little exposure is no problem for them. They can actually be out of the water for several hours. But luckily, it being such a low tide, it's going to come in fairly fast as well. And you can see it drops off pretty significantly here. I can take about 2 steps before I am swamping my boots. You've got a graceful crab here. I'm going to walk this way and show you a few more things. Another sign that we're in the low part of the tide is the presence of this kelp here. This is acid kelp, a species of kelp that produces sulfuric acid in response to stress. So when predators come up and try to eat this, they're going to get quite the sour taste in their mouth, and hopefully then leave it alone. And where there's kelp, there's almost always kelp crabs. Let me lift up this cute little creature so you can see the awesome little adornment this animal has glued to their head, a little piece of ulva sea lettuce to try to disguise their body shape and be less delicious looking, I would say. Although at this size, there's plenty that would eat him, just not me. I don't generally eat the beach creatures because I feel like they're my coworkers, you know? I spent so long teaching people about them, I don't really want to eat them. All right, so here we've got some more graceful crabs. And this graceful crab is either going to run away quickly or bury down in. And it looks like it's chosen the latter. Or maybe he's just going to bury his back legs. Graceful crabs are mistaken for Dungeness crabs because they have very similar coloration and shape. But in all my years of beach walking, I've never seen a Dungeness crab intertidally. They like deeper water. And these graceful crabs don't get nearly as large. The other way to tell is by looking very closely at their carapace. Can you see the teeth along the edge? And then there's one tooth, one little notch beyond the widest one. And then on their big pinchers, they have 2 little teeth that stick up compared to like a comb of little teeth that stick up. And it's going to be really hard for you guys to see, but there's so much plankton in the water right now. The water is really clear, which is surprising for how stormy it was yesterday. Everything has settled very nicely. But we've got some more graceful crabs, a few more kelp crabs. Here's one right here who's actually snacking on the kelp. This is a huge clamshell of the heart cockle clam, one of the really well adapted clams to living here. Oh, hey there, little graceful crab. Notice how they always run sideways? Their legs joints are sideways, so they are much faster going sideways than they are going straight. The cockle, instead of burying itself beneath the surface, sits on top and kicks itself towards freedom from predators, which is wild. Oh, you guys, my favorite creature, Anybody want to guess what's underneath the surface here? The cracked sand on a mound of kind of disturbed sand is sure sign that there is a moon snail underneath here. But before we unearth that, let's take a look at this creature right here. This is a gooey duck, the clam species that these moon snails are after. So let's give it a little dig and see how big a snail we're talking here. Sure enough, there's the shell, and then there's the foot. Oh, this is one. They get much larger than this, with a shell getting about as big as a softball, and a foot, this slimy, squishy part, about the size of a dinner plate. They're really quite large. Sand during the low tide, so we'll just cover you right back up. And they continue to move down there as they're going, which is why I'm able to detect their presence and just look for that cracked sand. Kind of gives them away, but for most of the other creatures that would be eating them, red rock crabs and gulls are the main ones. Being buried is generally enough to keep them protected. So that's really great. I'm going to show you a really cool habitat out here with some eelgrass in a moment. Oh, here's another gooey duck. So this is the siphon of the clam. You can see the two holes. One pulls water in and the other squirts water out. And this is how they filter feed, which means a lot of times at the beach you'll see these piles of debris. That's clam poop. No big deal. The whole beach is made of clam poop. Don't be grossed out now. So it looks like, oh, I bet you there's another moon snail right here. Oh, sure enough. Yeah, there's a moon snail. You can see just the kind of curl of their skin that's left open, so that that's for oxygen exchange. It's not quite a siphon like a clam has. They're not actively like squishing and squirting water through that. Just kind of a nice little adaptive feature. Here's a moon snail egg collar. So this time of year, the female snails are laying these collars. It is sand and mucus, a layer of eggs, and then sand and mucus. So I always say it's like the perfect egg sandwich, because the eggs are in between two layers of sand, and they kind of extrude it out their body, and it kind of curls around and makes this shape, which is perfect because when it's this direction, it's not going to drift in the waves and get pushed high up on the beach. It's going to be able to kind of stay in these lower tidal heights, which keeps the eggs more moist and helps protect them. But here's the habitat I wanted to show you. This is eelgrass, and this time of year our eelgrass is reproducing, which is really cool. So you can see these longer strands that are a little bit more yellowy. These are the seed strands. Let's see if I can show you some actual seeds. So right in here is the sheath where the seeds are developing. I don't see any that are close to being quite ripe yet, but we do have a bunch of crabs hiding underneath here as well. There's a gooey duck siphon right there. There's a red rock crab. Oh, and there's another red rock crab, as well as a leather star. This is really key habitat for animals that use it as a nursery. And so here we go. Yeah, you can see this. These yellow eggs are the eggs of the bubble snail. And the snails are a lot harder to find because they're very good at camouflaging. There's also a bunch of little shrimp. I hope you can see those. They're very adorable. They range from clear to yellow to green to match this environment, and they have kind of elongated faces. And they also utilize this habitat, as well as the kelp crabs. We've got a couple of different kelp crabs in here. And then the other function of eelgrass that's really important is its ability to kind of shelter juvenile fish, as well as eggs. So herring will almost exclusively spawn on eelgrass. Let's see, I just saw a hermit crab here a second ago. But now, oh, he's just rolling in the current. Here, little friend, let's show you off. In a very, very tiny moon snail shell. This is a hermit crab. So the crabs have to find a shell. They don't make their own shell. Here, we've got a lot of waves coming. So let me put my little hermit crab back and we'll go check in with our community scientists and see how their fish seine goes. And that'll give us a peek at what animals are living just right offshore. There's that moon snail again. Oh, Mike's about to get swamped. I did that earlier with my boots, but I only got a couple of drops of water in. So that's, for me, that's a win. I'm famous for stepping in farther than my boots reach. All right, so here's what's happening. Mike is dragging the seine through the water, making sure to keep the lead line, the very bottom, at the base kind of taut so that any fish are in there don't escape. And then what they'll do is they'll grab the net as he gets really close to shore and pull it in and then walk it up on to land. And then all the volunteers have this mad scramble to capture the fish as best they can, and then we'll count them and note what species are there. And you can see how steep of a beach that was because Mike was up to his armpits a moment ago and just 3-4 steps is back up. All right, so we walk it back and see. So, got, ooh, I see some flounder little babies there, which are fun. Ooh, we've got a staghorn sculpin.
Not often we catch a dead fish.
Oh, we caught a dead fish in the seine. That's a little different, but a cool species. So here's a little flat flounder-like fish. We'll just give him a quick scoop and.
That one was dead when we caught it. Just
place them
the one
in.
sand lance we got was actually dead on arrival.
So we'll note that, but
no, and long dead.
Yeah, no, it's
like
stiff.
Crunchy.
Yeah.
So Stina's really good at finding the littles. You have to have good eyesight.
They're so much fun to ID when they're like 3/4 minute.
Another little guy. These little teeny tiny flatfish. This is the underside of it. You can see straight through them. And then are very well camouflaged. And so they're harder to spot. So I'll just set them back in there. Let's see. Which kind? Ooh, an opalescent nudibranch. That's a fun find. Saw a couple of blind nudies earlier. The Miss America waving its foot around.
Hello.
It's Tina's favorite snail.
They're graceful crabs, so they're not super. They're not going to go after.
They're
you.
very docile.
This was a dungy. It would have tried to take your finger off already.
Oh, but we got male and female, so this is a nice
Look at this
description of these two.
one.
So we've got a female here in Mike's hands. Stina's got her hands full. And a male there. And you
We
can tell
want
because
more
that
detail?
abdominal flap. Yeah, tell us.
So if you open that flap up, the female holds the eggs here. She's not going to really like this, but she holds the eggs on these feather-like appendages.
Don't try this at home.
And those little pores right there are where the eggs are actually excreted from, versus the male. He looks different. He's skinnier, and if we open his up, he has 2 modified legs that they use to transfer sperm with.
So fascinating to see.
And he is lacking 2 claws, but he will grow them back.
So these, Mike's a professional crab wrangler. You don't want to try that at home, and especially don't try that with a red rock crab species or a Dungeness, because you'll lose a finger for sure. But yeah, this is just a nice peek into what kind of diversity we have here. Let's take a look at the fish total. Mike gets close to the edge so that he can just very quickly place them back. And we have probably died yesterday during the low tide. Sand lance, right?
Yep.
Yeah, pretty color.
Yeah.
Beautiful counter shading on them, the top being dark and then the belly being light helps them to blend in when they're schooling together.
So they're usually not this blue when they're alive. They're more olive color.
That is, I mean, so pretty.
Crab food.
Yeah, go give it to the crabs you just opened up. They deserve it. So look at all the fish in here just blending in. They're so hard to see.
We've got shiner perch.
Nice.
We've got one dead
Sand lance.
sand lance, one shiner perch.
So these videos going to be available later?
Yeah. So this is on our Facebook page.
One,
So say hi to yourself.
Hello!
one staghorn sculpin.
Nice. Very well named by those big
Yep,
staghorns.
spines right there.
And then good luck counting all these little
Um,
itty bitties.
got finish with our sculpins. So one tide pool sculpin. And a bunch of flatfish.
A bunch of flatfish. Pick the biggest one and good luck.
No, ID from big to small.
Yeah.
Wait.
What are we waiting for? Oh yeah, there's an opalescent. It's still floating. Yeah. Mike's tired of sea slugs.
Literally a sea slug named after you.
Detail. Whose eggs are those?
Whose eggs are those? Nobody knows.
Not mine.
So, what was my over under? 8? So this is an English sole. And we know it because its eyes are on the right hand side of its body. And when we flip it over, we can see this eyeball from the underside.
Okay. Good
And my
identifying
guess
characteristics.
is most of these are going to be English sole.
Yeah,
because
they
are
really look the
most
same.
common thing at this beach.
My little sea slug. I
But
wish I felt like I could grab it
There
there. That was
are-
great.
oh my gosh, get in my hand.
They don't always comply.
Oh, there we go. Oh, you get in my hand too. I'm just
So these flatfish have evolved a really, really cool survival strategy. Rather than being upright and swimming and having a left side and a right side, they fall to one side, either the left or the right. And then they can camouflage very well and live along the bottom.
that guy's he's the wrong mouth.
He's the wrong one. And you can see how similar different species can look, because this is a very successful body plan. So there's, a dozen different species that utilize this.
Okay, so that one is English for sure. That one's an English.
And you can see how well they camouflage.
So this
the
one I
bottom of
think
the
is
tank
just
here.
a developmental anomaly.
Is that a fancy way of saying he's a freak?
Well, it's either that or it's a juvenile starry.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
But
the fins are different.
yeah, I think that's a juvenile starry.
Do you have the bands?
You would know, of all of us.
Yeah. One juvenile starry.
Right? Oh my god. Can you work it.
People are in my way.
Why don't you release that? Why don't you release that nudibranch there?
He's like going on town. Riding cowboy.
So the same camouflage of this speckly sandy pattern is found on this Crangan shrimp as well. So you can see how similar they are and how well both of these animals blend in.
English. So we're up
What's this little guy?
3 and
Yeah, I was trying to
juvenile
catch that one
starry.
early. There's a little zooming guy.
So cute. That
2 more English.
that's my sticker. I think. It's either an opalescent or the.
Yeah, don't you
Probably not Jane.
That would be weird. It's opalescent.
But also cool. Like, way to go, sticker people, for
Yeah,
representing the candy corn.
Got one more shrimp in the left corner there.
I've got 3 shrimp, more shrimp, and one more.
3 shrimp or 3 more?
4 shrimp total, Prangon, and 1 more English.
So 6 English.
6 English, 1 starry.
So cute. They're so cute.
So cute.
Okay.
The itty bitty little guy.
Yeah, there's a zooming guy right on top.
Oh, this is actually a parasitic isopod. So this guy was on the gills of the Shiner surf perch. So he was actually
shipped.
Yeah, he abandoned ship. So they basically suck onto the gills and suck the blood of the fish. So they're an ectoparasite.
Delightful.
Yep. Okay.
All right, so, but look how, I don't know if you can see how steeply this drops off, but like 3 steps and I'd be over my head.
We're gonna go with
But it is an absolutely gorgeous day here today. This is one of those days where it doesn't feel like work when you have to haul all this gear to the beach and do all this work. Really tough physical science, but it feels like paradise today. And this is just about the lowest tide of the year. Yesterday, I think, was the official lowest. So you can take more than 2 steps. So one big difference between yesterday and today, the water that we're able to collect is just stunningly clear compared to mud, which is what we got yesterday. Because it was just so windy and there was so much waves and current that it stirred up all the sediment. What you got? Oh, my stripey. Oh. So this is a super cool nudibranch called a striped nudibranch. She stole my bucket. And what I love about it is they don't have the gill plume that other nudibranchs have. So they're lacking that plume of gills on the top, but underneath you can see their gills tucked right in the edge.
Perfectly working it for you.
Oh yeah, this is a paid actor.
Look at my gills. Look at them. Look at them.
And then they have 2 adorable tiny rhinopores up in the very front of their face. They look like little bunny ears. So we'll put this animal in this nice cool water. He'll flip back over, I promise. They don't really have a way to right themselves. But as soon as they stick down, then oh, we're gonna move so that we can get ready for the fish that are coming in. Oh, hey, and we've got the whole team here today. Lindsay's out here with us. It is rare that we get all 3 of us on the beach. It's very cold. It's very cold water. I was noticing that too. Mike's gonna get hypothermia in a second. In your forearm, just in your arm. There's lots of sea stars now here at this tidal height. They've been making their way lower and lower each day as they kind of realize that the tide is coming up. And then over the next couple of low tides for the next few days, they will make their way back up into this territory because the low tide won't be quite so low. So then we do the taco, grab the net and bring it together. We'll lay it down. You want to move this poor clam here. I got a clam. I'm gonna just pop it right back in its hole. It'll be happier there. So this time we've got some more different species. We got a pipefish here. Oop. Wiggly pipefish. Go quickly put you in. The mad dash to get all the things in.
And there's a gunnel just sitting right there.
Oh, hey.
That came out of the net.
I would assume that too. Come here, little fishy. And then let's see. There are lots, and this is where the trick of you kind of tap the net a little bit up, so you can see things like this ctenophore. So got a couple of ctenophores here. They're jelly-like animals, but not particularly closely related to jellies.
Just a second, he's moving.
Let's see, I'm betting there's still some tiny little flounders here. But so far, pretty great haul of fish. A couple of sculpin there. Those are the tadpole-like ones with nice big pectoral fins. A little tide pool sculpin. That's the little one that just got added.
Flatfish.
And then
And a stone, sorry.
yeah, it is cold water. We've got condensation on the outside of our bin here. That doesn't usually happen. So yeah, we're just gonna keep up doing this, figuring out what other species that we have, and then recording all that data so that we can know what's out here. And this is a program or an add-on to the program that we only do in the summertime, because at night our low tides in the wintertime are at night, and it's pretty dangerous to be wading into the water at night when it's dark and you can't see. Plus it's really cold and nobody really wants to be out in it.
What kind of difference is that?
Armina is the genus. It's the striped something.
Yeah, striped nudie. I think that's it.
So it's a side gilled
Yeah,
one.
they're so cool. Look
So
at
you
those
can see the gills on the underside.
And they eat sea pens, right?
Yes. I'm wondering if Paul Krug is the guy who's working at Mast. He's the only non-taxonomist
Super
nudibranch guy I know
nudies.
working on the
Love
West
them.
Coast right now.
Non-taxonomist?
So who's not just worried about the taxonomy and systematics of the group. So most people that work on sea stars just work on.
Anyway, this is what we're doing out here today. Just investigating what's offshore. And we've seen some pretty cool creatures already. We looked at a couple of crab species. We saw the eelgrass. We saw some moon snails. And then there are a number of sea stars just right off the edge. Let me see if I can grab one to talk about without going in too deep. Oh, it's also very mushy right here. You can see how far my feet are going in. It's kind of very liquidy sand around here. And it drops off very, very steeply. We're right at the edge of where the sand is. Oh, and here's a clam siphon. A nice one to see. And there... So sometimes you can just see tracks in the sand and wonder what it is that's making them. And sometimes you'll never even know what it is, but in this case, we definitely got a graceful crab that was buried and is now transporting some sediment around as it walks along the beach. Nice. Love to see those little guys. There's also a few more clams here. This is some acid kelp, a really cool species that produces sulfuric acid when it's stressed out. So when it gets eaten, it leaves a very sour taste in the animal's mouth, which helps it not to be eaten, which is pretty great. Here's another Gooey Duck siphon. The Gooey Ducks have very clean margins to their siphons compared to like a horse clam or butter clam that lets things grow on it. Oh, here's a little hermit crab. Let's put you near the water, friend, and see if you can come out for us. So anytime I see a snail shell that's not on a nice rock where snails like to be, this is a frilled dogwinkle shell, I generally can assume that it's a hermit crab inside there. And sometimes if you tilt the shell back like this, the hermit crab will come out and try to figure out why their shell is turned upside down. This one's a little shy. All right, little friend, we'll just leave you here. Oh, I just sunk. Oh no, I'm stuck. I may have to end the broadcast if I fall in. That would be embarrassing. More evidence of animals. We've got a purple varnish clam, also called a mahogany varnish clam. kind of a pretty color. We've got this great heart cockle shell. Check it out. You can definitely see the heart, why they got their name. Really deeply ridged shell. And it's empty. Nobody's home. And this is the size that they get, so I would guess this is actually a clam that maybe died of old age. Got another graceful crab here, and unfortunately the waves are making it so it's very hard to see, but there's a moon snail right there, just motoring along. I wish you could see its adorable little antennae that are sticking up, which you only get to see when the crabs are underwater, which is super, super cute. But of course the waves are kicking up, so you can't quite see it, which seems like this is probably a good place to end our broadcast. What do you say, Lindsay? Anything to contribute?
Learn, have fun.
Learn, have fun. Yeah, that's exactly how we want to leave every video. It's a gorgeous day. I hope for all of you watching at home that you're able to get your feet wet sometime this summer and spring. Get out, appreciate the shoreline, be a good guest at the beach, and be inquisitive and wonder about all the cool creatures that you've found. Thanks to everybody who liked and shared and commented, and especially to those of you who have donated to us. We are a nonprofit organization, and we depend on grants and donations to keep doing this inspiring work. So thanks everybody for tuning in. We'll see you at the beach tomorrow.